We've all felt the sting of criticism that wasn't constructive, the weight of judgment that wasn't asked for, the draining energy of people who seem to carry clouds wherever they go. Negative people, they're everywhere. In our families, our workplaces, online, sometimes even in our own thoughts disguised as self-doubt. And here's the truth in their negativity is not a reflection of who we are. It's a mirror of what they fear, what they suppress, and what they have yet to face within themselves. But here's the real question. How do we stay rooted in our truth, our purpose, and our potential? When the world around us is busy trying to shrink us, we don't fight fire with fire. We don't match bitterness with bitterness. We don't drown in their doubt. We rise in our growth. There's a moment in life when you start to realize that not everyone clapping for you is genuinely happy for you. Some are just watching, waiting, silently hoping you'll stumble. And when you start growing, when you begin stepping into your worth, owning your voice, chasing your dreams, something strange happens. People around you begin to shift. Some become inspired, drawn to your light, motivated by your courage. But others, they retreat, they criticize, they roll their eyes. Not because you've done something wrong, but because your growth unsettles their stagnation. Your boldness reminds them of their fear. Your action highlights their inaction. And if you're not prepared for that, you might be tempted to play small, to dim your light, to water yourself down so you don't make anyone uncomfortable. But the truth is, you were never meant to shrink in order to be accepted. Your growth is not a threat. It's a standard, a new invitation, a bold declaration of who are becoming. When you commit to growing, you unknowingly start holding up a mirror to everyone around you. That mirror doesn't reflect perfection. It reflects effort. It reflects bravery. It reflects someone who's willing to leave behind their excuses in order to become someone greater. And that can be confronting for people who have built their identity on staying the same. They might tell you you've changed, and you have. That's the point. Growth demands evolution. It demands sacrifice. It requires you to let go of who were to become you were meant to be. And yes, not everyone will come with you, but that doesn't mean you turn back. That means you stay the course. There's a difference between humility and hitting. Humility is staying grounded in your values while you grow. Hiding is denying your own power to make others feel secure. And when you start watering yourself down, accommodate someone else's fear, you don't just lose your authenticity. You lose momentum. You start second guessing your decisions. You start dimming your fire. You make yourself smaller and smaller until you don't recognize yourself anymore. But you weren't born to be less. You were born to expand, to lead, to shift atmospheres. You were meant to raise the standard, not conform to the comfort zones of others. People who are committed to growth understand that your success doesn't take anything away from them. They understand that your elevation doesn't win their diminishment. They cheer for you. They ask questions. They celebrate your breakthroughs because they know there's room for all of us at the top. But people who are stuck in cycles of fear and self-doubt will see your growth as arrogance. They'll try to guilt you, shame you, or make you feel selfish for choosing yourself. Don't listen. Don't internalize it. That's not your truth. It takes strength to grow when everyone around you is staying the same. It takes vision to keep building when others are content watching. It takes heart to keep showing up day after day when the people you love question your path. But that's what leaders do. They move forward. They rise. They make tough decisions. And most importantly, they refuse to betray themselves for the sake of fitting in. Because the moment you start editing your growth to protect other people's comfort, you abandon the very thing that makes you powerful, your ability to evolve. There will always be someone who doesn't understand your choices, who doesn't see your progress, who underestimates your vision. Let them. They're not your audience. They're not your assignment. You're not here to convince them. You're here to grow. And growth, by nature, disrupts. It shakes things up. It pushes boundaries. It challenges narratives. You don't owe anyone an apology for becoming more of who you are. You don't have to explain your healing, your success, your glow up. You've earned it. You've worked for it. You've bled, cried, doubted, and still showed up. That is not arrogance, resilience. That's leadership. That's power. And power doesn't apologize. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't shrink in the face of discomfort. It takes up space. It stands tall. It moves forward with compassion, but without compromise. Your growth is your gift, not just to yourself, but to the world. Every time you say yes to progress, to discomfort, to truth, you light a path for someone else who's watching. You become evidence that it's possible. You become a living example that healing is possible, change is possible, greatness is possible. The people who are meant for your journey will be inspired by your growth. They'll want to grow too. They'll meet you with love, not resentment. They'll rise with you, not pull you down. So don't base your pace on people who are standing still. Don't delay your breakthrough because others are too afraid to begin. Your growth sets the tone. It raises the standard. It shifts the energy. And it's not your job to make everyone else comfortable with that. Let them catch up or let them go. But you keep growing. You keep showing up. You keep becoming because you've already deciding you're not going back. There is a certain kind of freedom that comes the moment you stop needing everyone to understand your journey. It's the kind of freedom that whispers, you're allowed to live your life, even if others don't get it. There is a powerful shift that occurs when you realize that your energy is far too precious to be spent constantly justifying your growth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Not everyone is meant to get it. Not everyone is capable of seeing you clearly. And that's okay. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them your time, your energy, or your peace. You owe yourself the right to grow, to evolve, and to heal without needing permission. For too long, many people stay stuck not because they're incapable of moving forward, but because they are terrified of what people will say. They're afraid of the judgment, the whispers, the subtle side eyes, and the silent disapproval from family, friends, or even strangers. They carry the weight of expectations that were never theirs to begin with. And every time they try to take a step forward, they're pulled back by the need to explain why they're changing, why they're no longer available for drama, they're choosing peace, why they're building a life that looks different from the one others expected them to live. That's the kind of internal tug of war that exhausts the soul. That's the kind of pressure that keeps you small. But the truth is, your life isn't a public opinion poll. Your decisions don't need to be run by a committee. You are not required to sit down at the table with people who aren't invested in your growth just to explain why you're growing. You don't need to defend your healing, your progress, your boundaries, or your joy. You're allowed to protect what's sacred without providing footnotes and disclaimers. You're allowed to evolve in silence and let your transformation speak for itself. People who truly love you will not demand constant explanations. They will feel your shift and honor it. They will not guilt you for choosing yourself. They will respect your boundaries, even if they don't fully understand them. But the ones who push back, the ones who question, challenge, and subtly criticize, they are often not reacting to a you. They are reacting to the way your growth confronts their comfort. And no amount of explaining will fix that. You could sit down with them and pour out your heart, offer transparency, honesty, and vulnerability, and they still won't get it. Not because your explanation was flawed, but because they aren't ready to receive it. You can't make someone understand a path if never walked. You can't force them to see the battles you've fought behind closed doors, the inner work you've done, the nights you stayed up wrestling with yourself, the mornings you chose courage over convenience. That's the part of your story that lives quietly in your bones, and not everyone is worthy of access to it. Some people only want your story, so they use it against you. Some people ask questions not out of curiosity, but control. They don't want to understand. They want to keep you where they can predict you, where they can box you in, where they can feel superior. But you are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to live in alignment with your values, your truth, your calling. And sometimes that means being misunderstood. Sometimes that means choosing the unpopular path. Sometimes that means walking alone, not because you're wrong, but because you're brave. And that kind of bravery, it doesn't always come with applause. It doesn't always come with support. It often comes with silence. The kind of silence that makes you question whether you're doing the right thing. But don't confuse their silence with your failure. It's just the sound of you growing out of spaces that were never meant to contain you. You are allowed to make decisions that others don't agree with. You are allowed to heal from things they never saw. You are allowed to move forward without explaining why you're no longer available for conversations that drain your spirit. You don't have to sit in rooms that make shrink just to prove you're still loyal. You don't have to justify your boundaries to people who benefited from you not having any. You don't have to explain your peace, your distance, your silence, or your joy. Those who truly see you won't need a presentation to understand it. Let them question you. Let them talk. Let them misinterpret your silence, your growth, your change. Let them draw their own conclusions. And you keep choosing yourself. You keep choosing what makes your soul feel whole. You keep choosing peace over performance. Because the moment you stop wasting energy explaining your evolution, you reclaim that energy for the next chapter of your life. A chapter that doesn't need permission, validation, or consensus. It only needs you to keep turning the page unapologetically. In a world where noise is constant and distractions are endless, peace is not something that simply happens. It is something that must be chosen, built, and fiercely protected. The truth is, your peace will always be under attack from the moment you decide to live with intention. As soon as you begin to focus on your growth, your healing, your goals, and your truth, you'll notice how quickly the energy around these starts to shift. People who once had easy access to your attention may start to feel distant. Individuals who thrived off of your availability, your compliance, or your chaos might start reacting differently. That's not a coincidence. That's the power of protecting your peace. And why it must be treated as sacred. Meaning heart, negative people don't just drain you with that, they drain you with how they exist in your space, with the way they respond to your joy, the way they project their pain onto your progress, and the way they bring low vibrations into every room they enter. When you begin to guard your peace, you start to notice these things in a way you didn't before. You realize that certain conversations leave you emotionally exhausted, not because you're weak, because you're finally tuned in to your energy. You become aware that some people are more committed to conflict than connection. You understand that not everyone deserves unlimited access to your emotional availability. Peace is not passive. It's powerful. It's not about pretending things don't bother you. It's about refusing to let everything pull you into a storm. It's about discerning what deserves your attention and what's just a trap meant to distract you from your purpose. When you protect your peace, you begin to see drama as a detour, not a destination. You no longer feel the need to attend every argument invited to. You no longer need to defend your boundaries to people who were never planning to respect them anyway. You start to save your energy for things that actually feed your soul instead of draining your spirit. It's not always easy. In fact, sometimes protecting your peace means making very hard decisions. It means stepping back from relationships you once called home. It means learning how to say no without guilt and yes without fear. It means disconnecting from people who are addicted to negativity, even if they're family, even if they've been in your life for years. Because here's what most people don't tell you. The people who are most resistant to your peace are often the ones who benefit from your chaos. They thrived when you were reactive, overextended, and insecure. They knew how to control you when you were constantly trying to keep the peace externally by sacrificing your peace internally. But that version of you is gone. The one who stayed quiet to avoid conflict. The one who agreed just to be liked. The who said yes while screaming no inside. You've outgrown that version. And with that growth comes responsibility, your responsibility to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Your peace is the environment where your healing can flourish. It's the ground where your clarity takes root. It's the atmosphere in which your dreams can finally breathe. Without peace, progress feels like pressure. Without peace, joy feels like a performance. Without peace, you're always surviving but never thriving. And sometimes the most radical thing you can do for your peace is to stop explaining why you need it. Stop apologizing for being unavailable to negativity. Stop trying to help people who don't want to be helped just so they'll approve of your growth. Stop answering calls from people only reach out when they need something. Stop showing up to spaces where you constantly feel drained. This isn't about being selfish. It's about being wise. It's about finally realizing that not everyone who started with you is meant to go with you. It's about valuing your inner world more than someone else's opinion of it. When you protect your peace, you start moving differently. You start responding with grace instead of urgency. You listen more and react less. You observe, you reflect, and then you decide what's worth your energy. And sometimes the most powerful response is no response. Sometimes silence is your strongest boundary. Sometimes walking away is the most courageous choice. Because peace isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of purpose. It's the quiet confidence that you don't have to prove anything to anyone. That your worth is not tied to how much chat can tolerate. That your joy doesn't need to be dimmed so others can feel comfortable. And as you protect your peace more fiercely, you'll notice something beautiful. You begin to attract different people. People who don't compete but celebrate. People who don't drain but replenish. People who see your boundaries not as rejection, but as self-respect. Your environment starts to shift. Your inner voice gets louder. Your intuition gets sharper. And the weight that once felt unbearable begins to lift, not because the world changed, but because you did. The conversations you entertain begin to shift. You no longer settle for gossip, comparison, or petty criticism. You crave depth, meaning, and truth. You desire environments where you can be fully yourself, unfiltered, unbothered, unshaken. And as you continue to guard your peace, you stop looking for external validation to feel whole. You stop allowing anyone to rent space in your mind without paying in love, honesty, and respect. You stop chasing approval and start choosing alignment. There is a certain kind of strength that be explained, only witnessed. It's the kind of strength that doesn't shout, doesn't seek attention, doesn't need applause. It just moves silently, intentionally, consistently. And in a world full of noise and distractions, there is immense power in letting your actions speak louder than their opinions. When you're on a journey of growth, it's tempting to want everyone to see your produce, to understand your motives, to cheer you on. But often, they won't. Some won't see your vision. Some won't support your evolution. And some will even criticize it, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because they're stuck in a mindset that resists anything different, anything daring, anything that doesn't play by their rules. That's where many people fall into the trap of explanation, justification, and performance. They try to convince others that their dreams are valid, that their growth is real, that their purpose matters. But the deeper truth is this: your growth was never meant to be understood by everyone. It's not a group project. It's a personal commitment. And that commitment doesn't require a rune of applause to be worthy. The more you explain yourself to people who are already committed to misunderstanding you, the more you dilute your focus. You end up spending energy trying to win approval instead of directing that same energy toward your next step forward. Let them think what they want. Let them question your motives. Let them whisper in rooms you've outgrown. Because while they're busy forming opinions, you'll be too busy building. While they're watching from the sidelines, you'll be putting in the work. No one sees the early mornings, the silent sacrifices, the private battles. You'll be doing the hard, beautiful, unseen work of becoming someone you're proud of. And no amount of outside noise can interfere with that unless you let it. There's a kind of discipline that comes with not reacting, with choosing to say less and do more, with allowing your consistency to be the proof of your commitment. Actions don't lie. They may not trend on social media. They may not go viral. They may not get instant recognition, but they carry a weight, a truth, a credibility that no opinion can touch. It's easy to talk. It's easy to critique. It's easy to judge from the outside looking in. What's not easy is waking up every day and choosing discipline over distraction, choosing integrity over approval, choosing the quiet grind over the loud applause. That's the path of real growth. It's not glamorous. It's not always celebrated, but it's powerful. And the people who matter, the people who truly understand what it means to grow, to stretch, to build something meaningful, they see you, they feel your energy, your consistency, your authenticity. You don't have to convince them of anything because your actions already speak for you. And that is a kind of influence that no criticism can silence. Sometimes your greatest response is your evolution. Your greatest rebuttal is your resilience. Your greatest comeback is your calm. Not every comment needs a reply. Not every critic deserves your energy. There is wisdom and discernment in knowing when to speak and when to move in silence, in knowing when to defend and let where results do the talking. When you understand this, you begin to lead with grace instead of ego. You no longer need to be right. You just need to be aligned. You no longer seek validation. You just see out. And that shift changes everything. There is dignity in letting go of the need to be understood by people who were never meant to walk your path. Their opinions don't pay your bills. Their criticism doesn't build your dreams. Their assumptions don't define your truth. So why waste your light trying to illuminate people who choose to remain in the dark? Let them sit in their perceptions. Let them mislabel your silence, your drive, your boundaries. Meanwhile, you keep creating, building, healing, evolving. Because while they're talking, you're transforming. And that transformation, it speaks volumes. Over time, it becomes undeniable. It becomes so loud that even your silence is a statement. People begin to notice that something's different, not because you told them, but because your energy, your choices, your presence has shifted. And by then, you don't need them to validate it. You've already outgrown the version of yourself that needed their approval. There is peace in becoming so focused on your own path that the noise around you fades into the background, not because it's gone, but because it no longer holds power over you. That's what happens when you stop performing and start embodying, when you stop reacting and start leading, when you stop talking and start doing. It's a quiet kind of power, but it's the kind that lasts, the kind that builds legacy, the kind that moves mountains, not through force, but through faith, through commitment, through unshakable clarity. You may not always get the recognition you deserve. You may not be understood in real time, but are planting seeds, seeds of discipline, seeds of purpose, seeds of authenticity. And when those seeds bloom, and they will, it will be clear to everyone watching that your actions were never about proving anyone wrong. They were always about proving yourself right. It's one thing to grow when the environment around you supports it, when you're surrounded by encouragement, positivity, and people who understand the value of transformation. But it's an entirely different kind of stay rooted stated in your values when everything around you feels hostile to growth. When negativity is loud, when judgment is constant, and when you're tempted to match energy people who seem determined to pull you off course. In those moments, the pressure to conform can be overwhelming. You feel the urge to snap back, to shrink, to defend yourself, to mirror the same negativity that's being thrown at you. But growth doesn't work like that. It doesn't thrive in reaction. It thrives in intention. And if you're going to stay on your path, if you're going to build something meaningful, you have to stay rooted in your values, not their vibes. Staying rooted is not passive. It's one of the most courageous things you do when you're in an environment that tries to rattle you. It's easy to be pulled into drama, to get caught up in toxic conversations, to start operating from a place of defense instead of purpose. But when you stay grounded in your values, in compassion, in truth, in discipline, in peace, you become unshakable. You may still feel the weight of judgment, a sting of gossip, or the discomfort of rejection, but you don't allow it to redefine you. You don't surrender your integrity for temporary validation. You don't adjust your character to meet the expectations of people who haven't done the inner work. There is strength in stillness, not in silence that suppresses your truth, but in the stillness that comes from clarity, that calm center within you that knows who you are and what you stand for. That calm doesn't come from the absence of conflict. It comes from the deep decision to no longer let chaos control you. When you're rooted in your values, you don't waste time trying to prove your worth. You don't chase attention. You don't dilute your truth for acceptance. You simply live it, fully, unapologetically, and consistently. Negativity is loud, messy, and often performative. It thrives on reaction. It wants to drag into a space where you forget who you are. That's why staying rooted requires intention. It requires you to check in with yourself regularly and ask, am I responding from my wounds or my wisdom? Am I being led by values or their energy? Am I reacting out of fear or choosing from a place of peace? These are the questions that bring you back to yourself, because when the world starts to press in you, it's easy to forget. It's easy to become someone you're not just to survive. But survival isn't the goal anymore. Alignment is. It being rooted means choosing peace when you're provoked. It means choosing integrity when no one's watching. It means walking away from what's familiar but toxic, even when staying would be easier. It means saying no without guilt. It means trusting that you don't have to match someone's low energy to protect your space. You can rise above it. And in doing so, you reclaim your power, because real power doesn't come from calm manipulation or retaliation. It comes from presence, from restraint, from grace, from standing firm in who you are, even when everything around you is designed to pull you out of character. Sometimes people will try to test your boundaries, not because they misunderstand you, but because they're hoping you revert who you used to be. Someone more palatable, more agreeable, easier to manage. But when you're rooted, you no longer fold for the sake of peace. You are Rove the Peace. You carry it in your energy, your words, your choices. And even if it costs you connections, it never costs you yourself. Because staying rooted doesn't mean you evolve. It means you grow in the direction of truth, not in the direction of external pressure. It also means learning how to respond, not react. Reaction is instinctual. It's often emotional, impulsive, driven by the need to defend or prove something. But a response is thoughtful, intentional, rooted in clarity and strength. You don't need to clap back at every criticism. You don't need to confront every source of negativity. You don't need to make every battle yours to fight. When your values are your compass, you know which fights are worth your energy and which ones are distractions in disguise. This kind of maturity doesn't show up overnight. It's built over time. In the quiet moments where you choose character over comfort, truth over popularity, resilience over resentment, you learn to become your own anchor. You stop allowing people's moods to dictate your day. You stop giving away your peace in exchange for temporary approval. And slowly the noise fades. The drama loses its grip. The tension dissolves. Not because it no longer exists, but because it no longer has power over you. It begins to see that being rooted doesn't just protect your peace. It multiplies your influence. People start to notice the way you carry yourself. They feel your calm. They observe your constancy. And even if they don't say it out loud, your presence begins to shift the atmosphere. You become a reminder that it's possible to rise above the chaos, to stay true to yourself, and to lead with wavering purpose in a world that often rewards the opposite. Growth is often glamorized as this smooth, inspiring, upward climb, a straight path paved with clarity, support, and a clear sense of direction. But that's not how it really works. Real growth is raw. It's messy. It's lonely. And most of all, was uncomfortable. It's the kind of discomfort that makes you question everything: your choices, your relationships, your beliefs, even your own sense of identity. And yet, this very discomfort is where the transformation lies: the stretch, the friction, the resistance. These are not signs that something's wrong. They are the unmistakable signals that you are breaking out of the familiar and stepping into something greater. It's easy to want growth when it's exciting, when it feels like a breakthrough. Mean heart, when people notice and cheer you on. But about when it's quiet? What about when it's painful? What about when you're losing parts of your old life and the new life hasn't fully arrived yet? What about when it feels like everything's falling apart and nothing makes sense anymore? That's where most people turn back. That's where most stop. Not because they're weak, but because they've been taught that discomfort means danger. But in the context of growth, discomfort is confirmation. Discomfort is the classroom where resilience is built. It's where you learn how to navigate change, not with fear, but with courage. Growth will stretch you in ways you didn't ask for. It will demand more patience than you thought you had, more faith than you've ever been required to lean into, and more willingness to let go of what no longer serves you. And letting go isn't just about people or habits. It's about outdated beliefs, false identities, and stories you've told yourself for years. Growth doesn't just ask you to do more. It asks you to become more. And that kind of becoming will often feel like breaking. There will be days when you feel like you losing yourself, when nothing around you feels stable, and you're tempted to return to what's familiar just for the sake of relief. But the truth is, familiar doesn't always mean safe. Sometimes the familiar is what's keeping you stuck. And growth, by nature, will always pull you away from what's familiar. That's why it feels like loss before it feels like freedom. You have to shed old layers. You have to grieve former versions of yourself. You have to say goodbye to the comfort zones that kept you small. That's not failure. That's evolution. You cannot stretch without tension. You cannot rise without resistance. And you certainly cannot expand without first being uncomfortable. It's in the discomfort that your character is revealed. It's where your grit is formed. It's where your values are tested. And every time you choose to stay the course, despite the pain, you deepen your capacity to hold more clarity, more joy, more abundance. Growth enlarges you, but only if you're willing to stay with the discomfort long enough for it to teach you. There's also something sacred about the silence that often accompanies deep growth. You'll go through phases where no one sees what you're doing. No one celebrates it. No one validates it. You'll feel invisible, but you're not being ignored. You're being refined. Growth doesn't always happen in the spotlight. In fact, most of it happens in the dark, in the background, in solitude. It's in those quiet seasons that you build inner structure needed to sustain what's coming, because elevation without foundation is dangerous. What you're building on the inside is preparing you for the weight of the life you're meant to carry. People often talk about breakthrough moments, but they don't talk enough about the break-wins that come before them. The mental, emotional, and spiritual unraveling that must take place in order for something new to emerge. That's what growth demands, not just improvement, but transformation. And transformation isn't clean, it's disruptive. It strips away what's no longer true. It forces you to see where you've been playing small, where you've been hiding, where you've been settling. And in that seeing, you are invited to change. Not surface change, deep identity level change. The kind that doesn't just shift your behavior, but redefines how you show up in the world. There's also a deep loneliness that can come with growing. Because when you start healing, when you start seeing clearly, when you're setting boundaries and making moves that honor your worth, you might notice people pulling away. Not everyone will understand your journey. Some will feel threatened by it. Some will mislabel it. Some will try to guilt you back into who you used to be. That's not your burden to carry. Your path is sacred, and it doesn't need to be approved by people who've chosen comfort over growth. You are not abandoning them. You are answering a higher call. Growth also teaches you how to be with yourself. When the distractions fall away, when the noise quiets down, you're left with you, your thoughts, your fears, your dreams. And in that space, you find out who you really are. You learn to validate yourself, to support yourself, to believe in yourself, needing a crowd to echo it. That kind of self-trust is priceless. It's not built in comfort. It's built in the fire. And once you have it, no one can take it from you. So many people spend their lives trying to avoid discomfort, not realizing that discomfort is the doorway. The more you try to escape it, the more you delay your own becoming. But the more you lean in, with openness, with courage, with surrender, the more you grow. Not just into a better version of yourself, but into the truest one. The version that doesn't just survive life, but creates it, defines it, and lives it fully aligned with who you were always meant to be.